Hi everyone, it's Dee Rondinella, Technology Training Coordinator for the Stark Library with this month's Sewing Saturday. This month we are going to be making a reusable cotton tote. The really nice thing about that is not only can you use them over and over again, but you can throw them in the washing machine and then go ahead and use them again. What you're looking at here beside me is a tote that we're going to be making. It is made out of 100% cotton, but you can use denim or canvas if you so choose to. What we're going to do is we're going to start right here with the things I have in front of me. For instance, I have here my ruler that I use to cut out with my fabric along with my rotary cutter. I have my cotton fabric. I also have a triangle that I use during the process, a pair of scissors, and some pins. My fabric itself is cut into 4 different pieces. I have these straps which are 5 inches by 22, and I have 2 pieces. I also have 2 pieces of fabric here that are approximately 16 inches by 36 inches. You can change the size if you'd like to, if you want to make it bigger or smaller. It's entirely up to you, but I do recommend that you keep the size of the straps that I had given you, 5 by 22. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set my big part, this is the body of the tote, aside. Because what I need to do is first concentrate on my straps. With my straps, I made them 5 inches wide so that I could make these types of handles. I know it's difficult to see, but all it is folded in half, and there are seams on both sides of the strap. To do that, the first thing I did on my ironing board is I folded it in half and I pressed it right so that it is directly in half. The next thing I did is once again fold it in half with the raw edge of the fabric, finding that center fold, and again with the other side. After I've pressed it one more time all the way down so that it's nice and neat, I fold it together, and then from there I put my seams on. So I'll fold it again, and I like to give mine a little bit of starch to give it a little bit of consistency, and I give it one more press, and you're going to see I have that strap started. When I do that and I'm finished, I have to put a seam on each side of my strap. Now I do not use a 1/4 inch seam. I will use a 1/8 inch seam on my, that I can find right on the foot of my machine, or you can find it on the plate of the sewing machine. So I'm going to put mine down, and just so you don't have to listen to me sew, I'm going to be right back with these completed. All right, I'm back and I'm ready with my straps. But before I get started using them, I want you to see, here is my opening that I had folded under. Here is my first seam, and here is my second seam. But you can see I've got some threads hanging there, so I'm going to take my small scissors and I'm going to gently trim those off so it looks a little better. It's not like we're going to see them because they are going to be tucked inside of the fabric, but I do like to keep my edges nice and crisp and clean. I'm going to set these aside because my next part I have to work on is the body. That is this portion down here at the bottom. I have laid my fabric out, and remember the dimensions were approximately 16 by 36. And most of the time that is just about the width of a bolt of fabric. And so when you go to purchase it, think about cutting it lengthwise. Instead of going lengthwise, think about going crosswise when you buy your fabric. I'm going to go ahead because mine has creases, and I'm going to press those creases out because it really does make it easier if you keep the wrinkles off of the tote as you are working. I have mine pressed. Now, as I told you, these are 2 pieces. One is for the inside of the tote and the other one is for the outside. I know some people don't put lining inside of their totes, but I do for it makes it much more sturdier for when I'm carrying things such as books. So part 1, I'm going to lay out one of my pieces of fabric. They happen to match. If you choose to put a different type of lining in it, just be sure that you remember which one is the lining and which one's going to be the outside. That will be important in a few moments. So I have folded it in half, and I have made sure that my raw edges are all lined up. Now this one is going to be my internal part of my tote. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little mark right here with a pin. The reason being is because I need to leave an opening so that my I can flip it over when I need to. All right, so I have my pins in place where they belong, so that when I'm done I can pull the whole thing through. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sew just the two sides. One side and then the other. Be sure you keep them aligned, and sometimes it's easier to keep them aligned if you give it a little press down here and then you sew from the fold in. Or if you want, you feel confident, go ahead and start from the raw edge up. I'm going to do that actually to both pieces. This is the outer part of my tote, and I'm not going to pin it at any particular place because this one I want full seams. So I have 4 seams. The first one goes on the outside 2 edges. Here's 1, 2. The next 2 are the inside of the bag. 1, 2, and don't forget to leave a hole. And I'll show you that as soon as I'm done sewing those sides. Welcome back. I have my sides of my bag sewn with a 1/4 inch seam. I have the internal lining part sewn, leaving a gap here, right here at the bottom. And I also have this side. A little bit of a tip, when you are leaving the space to allow you to flip it right side out, you want to leave it closest to the fold, approximately 3 inches away. And that's so that you can hide it inside the bag when you go to sew that shut. All right, so let's go ahead with our next step. Our next step is our handles. You're going to see I have pinned my handles inside, just the one for now, so I can show you how it's being done. I have taken my handle, all right? I have them so that they close together, and then you open them up just like that. That's how you're going to be placing them inside of your bag. I tuck it to the inside of the outer part of the bag. I measure 3 inches away from the seam. From there, you can see that I'm leaving about 1.5 inches. And I do that for a reason. Let me give them a pin and I will explain. If you look at my bag here, you're going to see not just a top seam, but you're going to see a second seam down here. That is so that I can secure my handle and my bag with an extra seam, making it much stronger. So let me go ahead, I'm going to pin this, but I'm not going to do any additional sewing. I first have to do a little bit of footwork of putting the 2 pieces together. I have my handles, and I do make sure they're nice and straight because you don't want your handles crooked later on. So I have that. Now I have my lining, and I've got to get my lining inside of my bag. Well, this is where you have to remember right sides together. Always right sides together. So I'm going to pull my bags so that they will be right sides together. So my lining, I have them pulled. Now you can take a moment and give yourself some really nice creases with your iron. You necessarily use starch, you can if you want to. And so you would just give it a little bit of a pressing to make sure that it's nice and crisp. After you've done that, you're going to take the right side of the lining and you're going to put it inside of the other bag. So I'm lifting it, and I fold mine just gently so I can lay it inside of it. And what you're going to realize is you have to go between the handles. So just gently tuck them in there. You're going to then line up your seams, and there it goes. It's inside there. I know it seems a little bit strange, but when you go to pull it right side out, you'll see the bag emerge. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a couple of more pins, and I'm going to pin my seams together. And that's so that I can get a nice bag. You don't want it to be twisted, you want it to be straight. There we go. It's all nice and ready to go. Keep your handles flat and keep those seams and the edges together. And now what I'm going to do is take it over to my machine and I'm going to sew it. But I'm going to show you something special about your machines. Most machines have this feature, a removable piece. And the reason we have this removable piece is so that we can put our bags right underneath, just like that. And I'm going to sew across the top. So if you give me a minute, I'm going to put my seam in, and then when I come back, I'll show you what it is to flip it right side out. All right, I have my seam across the top. It's nice and secure, and you can see the extra pieces of my handle sticking out. Now there's something that we have to do before we flip it right side out. I'm going to pull my pieces so that they are open. So it looks like just a long strip of fabric, almost like a pillowcase of a kind. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab it by the center, just one piece of it. And the reason I want to do that is I want to fold it so that the seams are in the center. Now this seems silly, but what we're going to do is create a bottom to our bag. Now I have a ruler that I use. It is actually a triangle, and it helps me with my measurement. Because what I need to do is I need to go 2 inches up from the very peak of this triangle that I've made out of my fabric. Do you see that? There it is. So I will measure it using these arrows as my center guide on the seam, and I will measure 2 inches from the very point. And I'm just going to draw a line. I'm going to do that to all 4 of these points that we create. Just a straight line, because we're going to sew those. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sew straight across right on that line. I'm going to take a moment and finish the other 4, and so when I come back, you will be able to watch me flip it right side out and put the final seam on. I have sewn all of my corners like I wanted to, and so if you see what's happening, they're going to lay flat in the bottom of the bag, giving you a bottom. All right, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this thing right side out. Here's my hole that I have. Now don't forget, we got to close that up in the end. I'm going to come down here to the very bottom. Now I like these things to be folded in, so I just give them a pull. There we go. Our bag is emerging. You're going to see your handles. You'll see the bottom of the bags up here. And there we are. Look at that. You put the handle on the side it's supposed to be. So there we are. Now it looks a little funny still. Not quite a bag. But the next thing I'm going to do is I have to close up this seam. You can do this at the very end, you can do this in the middle, but make sure you do it after you've turned them right side out. I'm going to give that just a 1/4 inch seam. Now let's watch this happen. This is my interior, so I have to push this to the inside of the bag. You're going to notice I grab the bottom of the lining and I'm just stuffing it right into the exterior part of the bag. There we go. There you are. We have the emergence of a tote. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to give it a press, and then I'm going to put 2 seams at the top to secure it. So give me a moment and I'll be right back. I have pressed out my bag and I gave it the 2 upper seams, and you can see that we have a bottom that we created when we made our points, and we can stand up. if you wanted it to. You can do other things such as put interfacing on the inside, or you can put a what we call a balsa wood on the bottom that matches the square dimension on the bottom, or a simple piece of cardboard will do as well. I tend to just carry mine as is with my books, sometimes my groceries, or anytime I want to go to the store or carry something from my house to the car. I want to thank you for joining me today. If you would like more information on making the totes, please contact the library and ask for Dee. And have a great day.